Picture this. Grey water, white caps, and a horizon crowded with ships. The sea looks endless, but the closer you get to the Japanese coast, the more it turns into a bristling wall of radar sweeps, missile arcs, and black hulls lurking just below the chop. The map says islands. The reality is a fortress, one that doesn't shout, it whispers. Don't even try. Japan's deterrent power isn't a single silver bullet. It's a layered trap, a geography that chews up armies, a navy that hunts in silence, an air shield that stretches hundreds of miles out to sea, and a treaty that guarantees the United States will show up the moment an invader does. You want a dramatic answer to what if someone tried to invade Japan? Here it is. They wouldn't be invading a country so much as picking a fight with an ecosystem of denial. And ecosystems don't break. They adapt and overwhelm. Let's set the stage. Post-1945, Japan wrote pacifism into its DNA, promising never again to wage war. For decades, that translated into self-defense forces, not armed forces. But pacifist does not mean defenseless, and defensive does not mean weak. Over the last few years, Japan has quietly executed the biggest re-gear of its security posture in modern history, pledging to lift defense spending to roughly 2% of GDP by fiscal 2027, an epochal shift that turns self-defense into something far sharper, denial by distance. If you're planning a landing, that timing matters. Your window for a cheap shot is closing, fast. And the why behind that shift? Look around Japan's neighborhood. Chinese naval build-out, North Korean missiles, Russian activity to the north. Japanese public opinion has tracked the turbulence. In a fresh government survey released January 9, 2026, 68% cited China's military as the top concern, a leap from 3 years prior, while support for the self-defense forces hit a record 94%. Translation: the political headwinds against hardening the shield have died down. The country is tightening the bolts. Before we climb into the kit, remember what any invader first meets: the map. Japan isn't a big flat plain. It's a narrow, mountainous archipelago, stretching about 2,000 kilometers from Hokkaido to Okinawa, with roughly 3/4 of its landmass buried under mountains. That means limited axes of advance, few good landing beaches, and supply routes that run along narrow coastal corridors, where every bend is an ambush geometry waiting to happen. The interior is vertical, the coasts are urban, the approaches are choke points. Good luck threading heavy brigades through that without your logistics gasping for air. So what exactly makes an amphibious assault here such a terrible idea? Start at sea, because that's where your invasion dies first. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, is big, modern, and obsessively trained for anti-submarine warfare, mine warfare, and fleet air defense. By 2025, the JMSDF fielded a 23-boat attack submarine force built around Soryu and Taigei-class boats. Quiet, fast-charging lithium-ion bruisers that excel at ambushing amphibious groups and strangling logistics ships. Invasions don't run on glory. They run on fuel bladders and roll-on, roll-off ferries. Lose the tankers, watch your D-Day turn into a floating parking lot. Now zoom out to the Straits. The Tsushima, Tsugaru, and Soya Straits are strategic gates to the Sea of Japan and the Pacific. Since the Cold War, Japan has treated those thresholds like pressure points, places where maritime movement can be choked, mined, and surveilled. The JMSDF's mine warfare community is among the world's best. Bilateral US-Japan exercises in late 2025 show the density of hulls, helicopters, and EOD teams they can surge when it's time to salt the sea. Imagine trying to push an armada through water laced with smart mines. While underwater predators stalk and patrol, aircraft draw circles around you. That's not a fight, it's a filtration system. And those minefields? They're not static. They're set under a sky that belongs to the defender. Japan's air and missile defense lattice begins with long-range warning radars, like the phased array J/FPS-5 and J/FPS-7, and stretches upward to Aegis destroyers carrying SM-3 interceptors. inward to Patriot batteries, and outward to airborne early warning from E-2D Hawkeyes. This isn't a neat line on a slide, it's a radar picket that sees far, shares fast, and shoots high. It's also growing new teeth. 2 immense Aegis system-equipped vessels, ASEV, are under construction as dedicated ballistic missile defense ships with the AN Spy-7 radar, targeted to commission in fiscal year 2027 and fiscal year 2028. The result is a defender that can spot your build-up at range, organize intercepts, and force your landing force to sail under a ceiling of nope. Let's talk strike. Japan's new defense concept isn't about charging forward. It's about hitting back from far away, so an invader never gets within bayonet distance. That's what Counterstrike capability means in Tokyo's lexicon. Standoff missiles to crack open the kill chain before a single boot hits sand. In 2024, Japan signed for 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles, 200 Block 4 and 200 Block 5, for deliveries starting fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027, a fundamental shift that buys instant range while domestic systems scale up. Throwaway line? Hardly. For any planner sketching an amphibious assault, Japan can hit your staging ports, radars, and A2/AD nodes 1,000 plus kilometers away on day 1. Changes the math from maybe to no way. And the domestic systems are coming. The upgraded Type 12 surface-to-ship missile family, ground, ship, and air-launched, has been tested toward a 900 to 1,000 kilometer class range and has been accelerated into deployment sites across the archipelago, including southern Kyushu, Hokkaido, and the Ryukyus. Put launchers on islands like Ishigaki and Miyako, and you've built a picket fence of anti-ship fires that turn the East China Sea into a shooting gallery. The message: the first island chain is closed when Tokyo says it's closed. Now stare at the southwestern islands, where a quiet revolution is underway. Japan's Amphibious Rapid Deployment Brigade, ARDB, think Japanese Marines, has been purpose-built to defend and, if necessary, retake islands in the Nansei chain. It rides AAV-7s, flies V-22s, and trains from Osumi-class landing ships right where any invader would try to slip through. Layer on new surface-to-ship and surface-to-air units at Ishigaki, and plans for additional SAM coverage at Yonaguni, and you're not looking at a gap, you're looking at a crossfire. Add the US Marines' 12th Marine Littoral Regiment in Okinawa, now with its last subordinate littoral combat team activated, and a Nemesis anti-ship battery earmarked for forward deployment, and the invader's naval chessboard starts to run out of safe squares. Speaking of the United States, let's not be coy. The instant an armed attack hits territories under the administration of Japan, the 1960 US-Japan Security Treaty kicks in. That's not a hand-wavy, we'll think about it. It's a commitment to act, backed by the forward-deployed 7th Fleet at Yokosuka, including its permanently based supercarrier USS George Washington and Carrier Air Wing 5. Any invasion of Japan is, by treaty design, a fight with the US Navy and Air Force, and they're already on scene. Invaders aren't just arguing with Japan's lawyers, they're arguing with American arrestor wires. And the air above those wires? Japan is stacking it with 5th generation stealth and 4th generation muscle. Tokyo is on track to acquire 147 F-35s, 105 F-35As, and 42 F-35Bs, while upgrading 68 F-15J Eagles to the JSI Super Interceptor standard. The Izumo-class carriers are mid-conversion to operate F-35B Stove fighters. UK and US F-35BS have already trapped and launched from their decks as part of the workups. Put F-35Bs over the Ryukyus, feed them data from Hawkeyes and ground radars, and your amphibious group's radar picture goes from fuzzy to fatal. Stealth jets don't just drop bombs, they blind you, then cue everything else to finish the job. Let's be brutally practical for a second. Amphibious warfare is a logistics sport. D-Day wasn't a miracle. It was the world's most complicated supply chain. Japan's defenses are built to break that chain link by link. Start with the Straits, mine them, put submarines on the convoy routes, sink the oilers first. Give the ARDB and JGSDF coastal batteries a 1,000-kilometer reach. Delete the Amphibious shipping before it gets within helicopter range. Then throw the US Marines' literal kill chains on Okinawa into the mix. Nessus battery here, G8er radar there, a web of drones stitching the whole engagement zone into a single firing solution. Your invasion isn't blocked, it's unraveling. What about air and missile barrages to soften up Japan before the landing? You'll need more than salvos, you'll need miracles. The radar net we talked about is designed to hunt ballistic and cruise missiles. Cue Aegis ships with SM-3/SM-6 interceptors at altitude. Then hand the leakers to Patriot on land. Those Aegis destroyers already co-developed, tested and fielded SM-3 Block 2A interceptors with the US, and production has hit full rate. Add the coming ASEV pair carrying the SPY-7 arrays. And if you're the attacker, you're burning stockpiles for marginal effect while telegraphing your playbook. A bad exchange ratio is the silent killer of campaigns. Let's fold in geography one more time, because an invader can't wish away physics. Japan's long, indented coastline creates hundreds of potential false targets and precious few safe harbors for a landing force. Urban sprawl pins you near civilians. Mountains squeeze your maneuver corridors. Weather can ground your helicopters on a schedule that answers to nobody. In a place where 70% plus of the terrain is mountainous and the archipelago is long but narrow, a defender doesn't need to be everywhere. It just needs to be in the right places with the right shooters. That is the entire logic of Japan's standoff defense build. Fewer people, more range, smarter networks. Bases and backstops. Japan's self-defense forces have been planting new units along the Nansei chain, including Ishigaki's surface-to-ship and surface-to-air regiments, and are moving to add medium-range SAMs to Yonaguni, just 110 kilometers from Taiwan. Meanwhile, Japan has shifted its V-22 Osprey tilt rotors to their permanent Kyushu base at Camp Saga to cut response times to the southwestern islands. And the US keeps training with Japan on Yonaguni, using modern radars to fuse sensing with fires. If your landing craft does make it through, you're touching sand under a thicket of eyes. Good luck with that. Again, what about hitting Japan's fleet with submarines of your own? You'll have to slip past a country that treats anti-submarine warfare like a national hobby. The JMSDF's P-1 Maritime Patrol aircraft, destroyer screens with powerful sonars, and Hilo squadrons choreograph search patterns that punish sloppy underwater moves. And because the invader has to protect a huge, noisy, slow convoy, while the defender can hunt selectively with quieter boats, the attrition curve bends hard against the attacker. Remember, invading fleets are loud. Loud things die first. 2 more nails for the invasion's coffin: timing and alliance. Timing because Japan is mid-surge. Budget lines inked in 2024 to 2025 fund drones, Coastal Strike, and the ASEV super destroyers. Tomahawks begin arriving early. Improved Type 12 missiles completed testing at Point Mugu late 2025. And the George Washington carrier is back in Yokosuka after replacing Ronald Reagan. Every quarter that ticks by adds another layer of pain for the attacker. Alliance because Washington and Tokyo have already retooled how the US Marines sit on Okinawa into a littoral regiment built to kill ships and survive inside contested zones. You're not fighting yesterday's garrison, you're fighting tomorrow's porcupine. Could an adversary try to bypass an amphibious nightmare by attempting a decapitation strike, cybershock, or blockade? Sure, and in every scenario, they run into different versions of the same brick wall. Hit mainland bases and you trigger treaty obligations. Escalate at sea and you invite the 7th Fleet. Try a blockade and Japan's submarines plus allied air power make your picket lines bleed. Roll cyber dice and you discover Japan's redundancy culture, hardened command posts, and alliance resilience. Japan's entire disaster management ethos, born of earthquakes and typhoons, translates into military grit, decentralized authority, rehearsed logistics, and populations that don't panic easily. The more you stretch the conflict, the more allies you wake up. And the more you wake up allies, the worse your strategic position becomes. Okay, says the hypothetical invader, But what if we just mass fires to overwhelm the shield? That gambit assumes your magazines never run dry, and the defender stands still. They won't. Aegis shooters reposition. Dispersed launchers relocate under camouflage. The ARDB and US littoral units shift killboxes, feed targeting from G/A-TORs and E2Ds, and use drones as disposable scouts. On day 1, you were aiming at fixed pins. By day 3, you're trying to hit fog. By day 7, you're arguing with your logistics officer about how many cruise missiles you have left and whether burning 2 more to kill a dummy radar was worth it. Spoiler, it wasn't. Meanwhile, the political cost meter never stops. The first Tomahawk launched in anger at Japanese soil doesn't just trigger Japanese counterstrike, it summons US power by treaty. That means the invader is no longer gaming out a neat, localized war. They're calculating whether they can handle a Pacific carrier strike group, B-1s or B-2s launching from allied airfields, and a very public coalition forming against them. Think sanctions packages, export controls, and supply chain warfare targeting your precision-guided munitions factory inputs. War isn't just about battles, it's attrition across every system you depend on. Let's get concrete and walk a day of an invasion bid. 72 hours. Satellite imagery shows flotillas marshalling in a home port. Japanese and US sensors are already counting hulls. 48. The sea lanes near the Straits grow busy with JMSDF shadows. A submarine slides into a firing position astride your intended track. 24. ARDB and coastal batteries shift to pre-planned emission-controlled sites. E2Ds push to the edge. V-22s stage to move shooters around the islands. 12. A US Marine and Mises battery that wasn't there yesterday is now very much there. 0. Your lead ships hit a picket of smart mines. An ASW helicopter contacts a torpedo wake. Your air defense is suddenly trying to swat low-flying, sea-skimming problem sets while the radar picture suffers. By H+3, attrition and chaos have forced your admiral to choose between pressing into a narrower, better defended corridor or breaking off. Neither option wins the war, one just loses slower. And even if you could land, what then? You've come ashore on a ribbon of coast that bottlenecks at the first mountain. You need fuel, ammo, food, and spares for vehicles that hate salt water and soft sand. Japan's doctrine is to force you into kill zones, collapse your perimeter with counter landings, and keep the air above you hot with drones and jets. Meanwhile, the US Navy is chewing on your SLOCs, and the press back home is asking why your victory photo looks suspiciously like a disaster reel. If this sounds unromantic, that's because amphibious war is. It's a logistics marathon where the other team nails your shoelaces to the track. Modernization ties the bow. Izumo-class carriers gain real teeth as F-35Bs arrive. F-15JSI interceptors bring big magazines and new sensors. Tomahawks and improved Type 12s extend the defender's reach. ASEV superdestroyers add radar real estate and missile cells. V-22s cut transit times over the Ryukyus. Marine Littoral Regiment kill chains tighten. On the maritime patrol side, P-1s and destroyers keep the underwater picture fresh, vital, because an invader's fragile center of gravity isn't a flagship. It's a tanker, a roll-on, roll-off ferry, a fragile pier. Every new Japanese capability you've seen over the last 2 years is pointed squarely at those center of gravity targets. This is by design, not accident. Planning an amphibious invasion of Japan today would be like trying to rob a porcupine farm in a thunderstorm, wearing a metal suit, while the porcupines have night vision and a lawyer on retainer. Not impossible in a physics textbook sense, just cosmically unwise. But the conclusion isn't just don't invade Japan, it's here's why no serious power will. Geography comes first, mountains, straits and narrow coasts. Then the kill web, subs, mines, radars, Aegis, Patriots, standoff missiles. Then the Alliance, the 7th Fleet's supercarrier at Yokosuka, CVW-5 at Iwakuni, US Marines digging littoral foxholes on Okinawa. Then modernization, Tomahawks in the magazine, Type 12 at range, F-35s in the pattern, ASIVs on the way. Finally, the intangibles, a public that's awake to danger, a government that has made the choice to deter, and a military culture that practices the hard stuff, quietly, relentlessly, and with allies. Put all that together, and any invasion plan goes from ambitious to career-ending. If war is politics by other means, then invading Japan is self-harm by other means. Japan isn't unbeatable because it aims to conquer. It's unbeatable because it has mastered the art of saying no. At sea, in the air, across the islands, and in the decision loops of anyone reckless enough to misread the map. It's a fortress archipelago that learned from history and built a better future. Layered, networked, allied. So to the hypothetical invader, save your ships, save your missiles, and save your speeches. Invading Japan would be the mistake of a lifetime, and Japan has engineered it that way, deliberately, patiently, and with friends who bring very large carriers.